네, 이제 서울 포럼 2019 안드레아스 하이니 단장님 여러분 큰 박수로 맞아주시길 바랍니다.
All right, thank you very much. This has been quite an event. Thank you. It's a really, really great pleasure for me to be here because I feel very passionately about communicating science and our achievements to a general audience. And so my talk today will not be very much about the science that we do, but more about how we can communicate our science. So I will have 3 parts in my talk. In the first 5 minutes or so, I'll try to explain to you what quantum nanoscience is and why you might be interested in that field. Then I will comment a little bit on my take on basic science, what makes basic science important, and how can we achieve good basic science here in Korea. And then I will talk about general outreach. So let's get started. Our motto is engineering the quantum future. By this we mean using quantum mechanics, the theory of quantum mechanics that describes essentially everything, to create a better future. So QNS is laying the foundation for future quantum technologies, but we are part of the Institute for Basic Science, so our mission is to perform basic science to lay this foundation. We are located at Ewha Women's University here in Seoul, about half an hour taxi ride away. And before I get any further, let me, with the deepest heart, say a big thank you to you all. You are making it possible for me to do this research here in Korea through the IBS system and through Ewha Women's University. So thank you very much. Now, one slide, why is this research field maybe important today? We already, in our current technology, and our companies here like Samsung and Hynix are leaders in semiconductor technologies, we are running into problems by the fact that we're making our devices so small that we arrive at the atomic scale, and these quantum mechanical effects are really important in our current IT technology. But a more interesting take on the same subject might be that we want to use quantum mechanics to do entirely new things, such as quantum computation and quantum sensing. And this is really what drives a lot of passion nowadays in this field. But as I said, we at the Center for Quantum Nanoscience are allowed to perform the basic research that underlies these things. Now, this is a worldwide research effort going on right now. There is incredibly large amounts of money being spent in the United States, in Europe, also in China and many other parts of the world. So we are in a community that is really being developed as we speak. A little bit more specific, what do we actually do? We are working on the quantum behavior of individual atoms that we can put on a surface and we can control with spectacular precision. So we are not so much interested in making devices, but in understanding the properties of atoms and molecules on surfaces. My specific research tool is the scanning tunneling microscope. I will not explain to you how this works today. That's a different talk. But we're also interested in other uses of, for example, here we have a defect in a diamond material which we can control with optical means. This is the field of what we call quantum nanoscience. So this is all I wanted to say about my own personal research. So let's focus a little bit on the bigger question. How can we do great basic science research? And the most important thing, and I cannot stress this enough, is to give basic scientists time. We need time to do great basic science. You cannot get basic science done from tomorrow because we need time to get great ideas, to ask the right questions as we learned today, and so it takes time. There's many, many examples. I want to just mention 2 here. There's an example from Leonardo da Vinci, who, as we heard earlier, was an artist, a poet, an engineer, and also a great scientist. And he was supported for his whole lifetime for his work in Italy. A more recent example, and this is really important, I think, for the basic science funding, is the recent work on the detection of gravitational waves in the United States. This is work that was predicted, the theoretical predictions came from Albert Einstein in his theory of general relativity about 100 years ago, but it took a long time to be able to make experimental machines that could measure at that precision. And this precision is truly mind-boggling. But here, looking at the timescales, it took from about 1980 to 2015, so that's 35 years of continuous large-scale financial support to be able to make these machines that can make these breakthrough discoveries. So 35 years is a long time scale, in particular here in Korea, where everything has to change fast. But if you want to do something as great as detecting gravitational waves, you need time. So how do we create such an environment here in Korea? We need stable funding. We need autonomy to decide ourselves what research we want to do. And, as I said before, we need sufficient time to achieve the scientific breakthroughs that we're all looking for. Now, I came to Korea specifically because of the Institute for Basic Science and the opportunity to create a research center with stable funding, autonomy, and sufficient time to be able to succeed. So I believe that this Institute for Basic Science is exactly what we're looking for in this context. But let me say this here, Kicho kwahak kiulonmyon bali bali buto bolyola. Get rid of Bali Bali. There is no Bali Bali in basic science research. Right? A year is not a lot of time for us. Sometimes we can't get anything done in a year because things just don't work. We need time. And so this is a very important concept that I can't stress enough here, especially in the context of Korea. Okay, this is my recipe for basic science. And now for the rest of my talk, I would like to focus on how we can communicate our basic science to a non-scientific audience. And why do we do this? Because we want to create enthusiasm in all of you for the work that we do. Because you are, in the end, the ones that are supporting our research efforts. So how do we communicate science to a general audience? Let me start with how we normally communicate our science. We write papers. Like here's a paper that we published at the end of last year, and the title is Hyperfine Interaction of Individual Atoms on a Surface. I would say as far as scientific papers goes, this title is reasonably understandable, right? You have individual atoms, you have a surface, maybe you know what a surface is, maybe not, but you certainly don't know what the hyperfine interaction is, right? And so if I go to this journal was published in Science, if we look in this Science journal, there are many articles that I can't understand at all, even though I am a scientist in basic science. So we've chosen to communicate in a way that we even can communicate with experts that are just a little bit away from our own research field. So this is targeted only for experts in a very small subfield. Now, if we're lucky and we have great research results, then sometimes the general media, like newspapers, like our sponsor here, or the TV can help us to promote our research. So let me play this little clip here.
기초과학연구원 양자나노과학연구단이 홀뮴이라는 물질의 원자에 정보를 저장하는 기술을 개발했습니다. 산화 마그네슘 기판 위에 홀뮴 원자를 올려놓고 미세 탐침으로 전기 신호를 주면 원자의 자성이 위아래로 바뀝니다. 이 변화를 철 원자로 측정할 수 있는데 이를 통해 0 또는 1이라는 디지털 신호를 읽어내는 겁니다.
So here we made these animations. We hire animations firms to try to bring this research a little bit closer to you. But I could probably ask you right now, and you would still tell me you don't understand what we're doing. Right? This is still too complicated. Even the KBS news channel cannot make this digestible to a general audience. So we need to do more if we want to communicate with a general audience. And so this brings me to 3 examples that I've selected from our work that we're doing here. The first one is a YouTube channel that we've created as part of our center, and this really is supposed to reach out to all of you. The second example goes back to my work at IBM before I came here to Korea, and is about the world's smallest movie. And this is important because it shows you how difficult and how expensive it is to do really great outreach. And the third one is an art contest that we have going on this year. So let's look at our YouTube channel. If you look at the contents that we have here, some of it is describing our research, but most of it is really geared towards non-scientific audiences, like the science talk that we have here, the Meet Q&S, and also the Engage the Community. So we are actively working on creating contents that is something that you should really enjoy. And I want to play you 2 clips here. The first one being from the science talk given by one of our German postdocs, Philipp Wilke, who is really an expert communicator, as you will see, and he will describe the basics of the scanning tunneling microscope for you.
The object in the middle is the microscope they actually got the Nobel Prize for, the scanning tunneling microscope, which allowed scientists to create images of atoms. Here you see one of the first images they took using that microscope, showing the surface of a silicon crystal, an important material for electronic devices. Each white dot marks the position of an atom here.
And you can see he's very animated and he really loves explaining basic science concepts to a non-scientific audience. So this is contents I think we need to create more of. I always say that if I do research that I cannot explain to my grandmother, then I'm doing something wrong. I need to understand my research at a level that I can explain this to anybody. The second one I want to show you is a clip from one of our students. As we said in the beginning, I work at Ira Women's University, and of course, as the name says, that means that all of our students are women. And I want to show you this clip here from one of our students, Safa, who's from Bangladesh.
I mean, I've always been interested with sciences, but physics is something, it's like a father of all other subjects. For me, physics has been one of the most interesting subjects always, and I think it's the curiosity. After starting physics as an undergraduate subject, the more I studied, the more I loved it. And I just want to keep on studying it. Never happened with me with any other subject.
I love her enthusiasm, right? She can't stop studying physics because the professors apparently have done such a great job of teaching her the passion that you need for physics. And as we learned earlier today, passion is really what we need in order to create great research results. Now, I don't know if Safa is going to be a really great scientist. She's still young and in the process of being developed into a scientist, but she has the passion and the enthusiasm to make that work. And I think with YouTube, we can show that researchers are normal people, that we are all humans, and we are in this adventure together because we are passionate about science. So now, let me focus on a slightly different aspect. I used to work for IBM, a very large international company, and I was in the division of nanoscience research. And the company at the time was supposed to or wanted to be seen as a leader in nanotechnology. And so it made sense for the company to say, let's take the money that we normally put into a marketing campaign, that is about $1 million to make a TV marketing campaign, and rather than giving this $1 million to TV companies, let's use this to promote our own researchers and create contents. So the scale of this project that I'm describing to you right now is $1 million US. Now with this, we created the world's smallest movie. The idea was for IBM to put itself in a younger audience light. IBM is traditionally a business-oriented company that wanted to appeal more to our audience here, to younger people, and they wanted to do 1 million views on YouTube. Before, they didn't have any videos that had 1 million views. My own personal goal was to encourage young people to study science and technology. This is still very passionate to me. Now, how can you do this? We hired a marketing firm, Ogilvy and Mather, one of the very big marketing firms in Manhattan in the United States, in New York. And they, of course, said, we need to tell an emotional story. If you want to reach people, you cannot tell a purely scientific story. You have to tell an emotional story, because emotion is how we communicate with each other. But we want to tell an emotional story with science. And so the creative company came up with the idea of the boy and his atom. So on the right, well, I don't know which side, one side here, you see the atom coming close to the boy, and the atom starts dancing with the boy, then the boy starts dancing, and then both of them dance together. And the most important part here is the end. It says, the boy and the atom dance together in harmony, they are friends. So in very few strokes, these geniuses create an emotional connection that actually works. Now, the difficulty, of course, is that we want to tell this story with atoms. And so let me give you one slide here on why this is difficult. Of course, atoms are really small. We put these atoms on the canvas that we paint on, which is a piece of copper here. You see it here on the side. And this piece of copper is about as big as a coin, so 1 centimeter or so in dimension. Now, how small is an atom in comparison? So if a single atom was as big as this coin, then how big do you think that coin would be if I scaled everything up by that factor? The coin would be as big as the entire planet that we live on, right? So we are scaling down from the size of the planet down to a single coin, and that is, of course, why the work on the atomic scale is difficult. But, of course, we have these tools at IBM and now also at Ewha Women's University. We have these tools that allow us to work with single atoms. And so then the creative company hired a layout design, and so they figured out how many dots does it take to make this boy, because we can't make it with strokes, because every atom is a dot, and so we needed to make it as dots. And so then we converted this into a real frame. So this is now an image on the atomic scale taken with the scanning and tunneling microscope, where you see the boy made of 90 atoms and the single atom on the side. And of course, now we have to animate this and make them dance together. So let's do that. So it looks so simple here, right? But every single one of these atoms we have to position with atomic scale control using the scanning tunneling microscope. It took us, a team of 4 people, 10 days, working 18 hours per day, essentially non-stop, to make the frames for this movie. My own personal involvement with this project was on the order of 3 months. So 3 months of my time went into making this project work. And again, we spent about $1 million on this campaign. So why? Because IBM wanted to use this as a marketing campaign. They wanted to achieve 1 million views, and we got 1 million views in a single day. The first 2 days, we got 1 million views each. And this is, of course, only possible because of outreach over all the social media and traditional media channels that were available because of that large budget. My personal goal was to encourage young people to study science. And this is, of course, a little bit harder to measure, but let me give you a couple pointers as why I think this actually succeeded. The first one, there were really excellent comments on YouTube. They were asking questions like, why don't we see the atoms underneath the atoms that we use? Or what are the waves on the surface? All of these questions are really interesting scientific questions. Also, this movie was published in 2013. We have now something like 8 million views on this. And it's still active in 2019. We just received a gold medal on a Reddit sub-channel. So people are still very interested in this. And most importantly to me, over 1 million people watched the 5-minute movie that describes in detail how we do this, why we do this, and why it is important to do the basic research that underlies this movie. So I think this was a great success, but you have to recognize that this level of success is very, very difficult and also expensive to achieve. Now, finally, I want to end with the art contest. This is something that we actively have going on right now, and maybe you have some friends, or maybe you are artists yourself. The idea here is we want to share our research to a community that is non-scientific, and we specifically chose artists as a target here, engage with them to introduce our research center, and have them learn about quantum science and nanoscience, and possibly also decorate our new research building that Ewha is building for us. We're moving in next month, so maybe we can use some of the art to decorate our building. This is geared towards general audiences and students, and the rewards are kind of interesting. The monetary reward, maybe not so interesting, something like $3,000 US, but the awards will be given at the award ceremony during a large international conference, which we're organizing in September, and the winners will participate in a banquet with the president of Ewha Women's University. So this is, I think, is a really special honor for the participants. So how do we engage the arts community? We have one student, Jin Kyung, who was an undergraduate in physics with a minor in art history. So she was the perfect person to take on this task to communicate art and science together. She made a beautiful article, 2-page article, on the relationship between art and science. She explained quantum duality, superposition, entanglement, really complicated quantum mechanical concepts in a really fun and engaging way. She also gave a talk at IWA. We didn't know how many people would come, but it turned out, this is Jin-Kyung here in the front, 70 artists came, overfilled the room. We had to sit on the floor. I wasn't even there. I wasn't involved in this at all. She gave a 30-minute talk, and then she had 100 minutes of questions and answers. Together with the postdoc you see in the back, Wonjun, who really is very passionate about explaining the science aspects of it. The two of them really handled this apparently really beautifully. This led to a Naver post where we got over 6,000 views, and we didn't have to pay for this. I heard that 6,000 views on Naver, that channel would cost you something like $10,000 US typically. And most importantly, 500 people downloaded the contents, and they are studying about quantum nanoscience now in order to convert this into art. So let me give you two examples here of what Jin-Kyung explained to this audience. The first one is on quantum duality. Is light a particle or a wave? In the 1800s, there was a big debate in the physics community whether light is a wave or whether light is a particle. And of course, we now know light is both a wave and a particle, depending on how you look at it or which experiment you perform. At the same time, the Impressionist movement, of course, dealt very much with the concept of color in art. And one particular person here, Georges Seurat, used the particle nature of light by not drawing with strokes, but to make individual dots and create the beautiful artwork where each color is created by individual dots of fundamental colors. So this is an interplay between art and science. Now, the second concept I want to show you is a little clip that Jin-Kyung again created. In the quantum world, we have the superposition. So
두
let's
번째
listen to
양자의
her.
성질은 불확정성의 원리입니다. 양자역학 세계 이전에 기존의 세계에서는 만약에 사과가 사과나무에서 떨어지는 것을 본다면 우리가 이 사과의 질량과 순간순간의 위치와 속도를 알고 있으면 이 사과가 어느 지점에 어떤 힘을 가지고 떨어질지를 쉽게 예측할 수 있습니다. 하지만 양자의 세계에서는 입자들은 확률적으로만 존재하기 때문에 우리가 이 입자의 운동 상태를 정확하게 안다는 것은 불가능한데요. 이러한 것을 슈레딩거의 고양이 이미지로 잘 아실 수 있습니다. 아주 작은 세계에서, 양자의 세계에서 아주 작은 상자 안에 아주 작은 고양이가 있다면 우리는 이 고양이의 상태가 죽어있는지 살아있는지를 정확하게 알 수가 없습니다. 그래서 이 고양이는 50%는 죽어있고 50%는 살아있다는 그러한 상태로 묘사가 되는데요. 그리고 우리가 만약에 억지로 이 상자를 열어서 이 고양이의 운동 상태를, 어떤 고양이의 상태를 확인하려고 한다면 우리에게 절대 정확한 정보를 알려주지 않습니다. 왜냐하면 그것은 확률로만 존재하기 때문입니다. 그래서 이러한 불확정성의 원리를 자신의 작품에 적용시킨 작가들이 있는데요.
So I just want to point out that she's, of course, speaking. She is now a second-year master level student. She's speaking to an audience, in this case YouTube, but also in giving the talk, she doesn't really know. She must have been nervous for a long period of time. She told me that she hasn't even watched this video because she's so nervous about seeing herself on the camera, right? But I think she can do an amazing job at trying to bring these complicated concepts to a general audience. And I'm really looking forward to see what the results of this art contest will be. Okay, finally, how do we do long-term basic science? This is just repeating what I said before. We create an environment with stable funding, autonomy, and sufficient time to achieve breakthrough results. This is really what we need to do if we want to create great basic science research. Now, why do we do this? Maybe more importantly, why do we do this? We heard here that it's all about the economic development, right? I really hope that this is true, but for me, it's a little bit smaller. Why do we want to create basic science research? We want to create world-class basic science. At my center, it means engineering quantum systems on the atomic scale and studying their quantum behavior. We want to train the next generation of Korean leaders in science and engineering. And of course, the specialty that we have being at a women's university is that all of our students are females. And so hopefully, we can contribute to creating a large number of female scientific leaders for the future. And finally, we want to develop the foundation for future technologies And in our case, that is the technologies that underlie the field of quantum sensing, quantum computation, and quantum communication. So this is really why we do the basic science research, in particular for my center. So here you see a picture of about 2/3 of the people and the new research building that we're creating, almost finished on the campus of Ewha Women's University. And as I said in the beginning, a huge thanks to IBS and to Ewha and to the taxpayer, that being you, for giving me this opportunity to do this work. Now I want to finish by showing you a couple of our social media channels: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and Twitter. And I want to challenge you to participate in any one of these channels. And if you comment or like the channel in the next, in the next day, then we will draw 1 or 2 winners, invite you to Ewha Women's University, treat you to lunch, show you our research environment, and spend time with you to explain why we do quantum nanoscience research here in Korea. So with this, I'd like to thank you for your kind attention.